Hello and welcome to the True Story channel. Thank you for spending a few minutes here with me today. What you are about to hear is not just a wedding story. It is a story about family, about silence, and about the moment someone finally decides that enough is enough. And if you stay with this video until the end, I believe you may walk away understanding something deeper about people, about the quiet weight of family expectations, and about the difficult lessons that sometimes shape who we become. Before everything changed, before a single glass shattered the calm of that afternoon, the signs had been there for years. Looking back now, I can see them clearly, like small cracks in a wall that no one bothered to repair until the whole structure finally gave way. My name is Emily Carter. I was 29 years old at the time of my wedding, living in Portland, Oregon, and for most of my life, I believed that patience was the same thing as strength. I believed that if I stayed calm, avoided conflict, and gave people the benefit of the doubt, everything would eventually settle into place. But families are rarely that simple. My younger sister Lily had always moved through life as if every room she entered was already waiting for her. Attention followed her easily, and over time, she seemed to expect it the way most people expect sunlight in the morning. At first, the moments were small enough to dismiss. During family dinners, she would lean across the table and take food from my plate, as if it belonged to both of us. If I gently protested, my mother would laugh and say Lily was only joking, reminding me not to make such a small thing into a problem. The same pattern repeated itself again and again. At my college graduation, a day I had worked toward for 4 long years, Lily suddenly complained that she felt sick and dizzy in the middle of the ceremony. My mother left the stands to take her home, missing the moment my name was called. Later that night, my mother apologized and said Lily needed her more in that moment. I told her it was fine. I always said it was fine. Then came the engagement party. That evening, when Lily walked into the room wearing a champagne-colored dress that shimmered dangerously close to white, several guests exchanged quiet glances. It was not exactly inappropriate, but it was close enough to make people uncomfortable. My mother leaned toward me and whispered gently, just as she had countless times before. "She is just excited for you. You know how she is." Yes, I knew exactly how she was. What I did not yet know was how far Lily would go when my wedding day finally arrived. What would you do if the person who shattered the calm of your wedding day was your own sister? Not with an argument whispered in the corner, but with a single moment so loud that every guest turned to watch it unfold. That was the moment I realized the small signs from my past were not coincidences at all. They had been leading here all along. Our wedding took place in early October at a quiet vineyard in Napa Valley, California. The afternoon felt almost unreal in its beauty. Long rows of grapevines stretched across the hills, their leaves glowing under soft golden sunlight. A gentle breeze moved through the air, carrying the faint scent of oak barrels and ripening grapes from the nearby winery. Guests sat in white chairs, arranged across the lawn, while soft jazz music drifted through the speakers. For a while, everything felt calm. Daniel stood beside me at the altar, steady and reassuring, his hand warm around mine. I remember looking at the faces of friends and family, and thinking that maybe this day would remain peaceful after all. Then Lily arrived. She walked down the aisle later than everyone else, her heels sinking slightly into the grass with every step. When she passed me, she smiled. It was not the kind of smile you give someone on their wedding day. It was thin, almost distant, like someone observing a scene rather than celebrating it. The ceremony continued without interruption, and soon the reception began beneath strings of warm lights hanging above the tables. Glasses were raised for the toasts. When Lily stood up with a champagne glass in her hand, the conversations around the tables slowly faded. People turned toward her, expecting something affectionate, maybe even sentimental. Instead, Lily looked directly at me and spoke clearly across the quiet vineyard. This is what happens when someone starts believing she is better than everyone else. Before anyone could react, she swung her arm and flung the champagne across the wedding cake. The pale liquid soaked into the white frosting and ran down the sides in uneven streaks. Then Lily stepped forward and pushed the top layer of the cake with both hands. It collapsed heavily onto the table. The sound echoed through the silent crowd. Daniel moved instinctively toward her, but I placed my hand on his arm and stopped him. Lily was not looking at the cake. She was looking at me, waiting to see if I would break. I did not give her that moment. What happens when the person who has quietly supported someone for years finally decides to stop? The real turning point in this story did not happen at the vineyard, in front of the guests, or even when the cake collapsed onto the table. It happened later that night, in the quiet stillness of a hotel room, when the noise of the wedding had faded and the truth finally had space to surface. After Lily pushed the cake and the crowd stood frozen, my mother rushed toward her immediately, wrapping her arms around Lily as if she were the one who had been hurt. I heard her voice smoothing over the moment, the same calm explanation she had used my entire life. "She just needs to let it out," she told the guests nearby. I said nothing. Instead of arguing, I turned to one of the catering staff and asked if there was another cake in the kitchen. A chocolate one appeared a few minutes later, and the music slowly resumed. From a distance, my mother sat with Lily on a bench near the parking lot while the reception continued. Lily kept watching the celebration, as if waiting for something from me. But the real response came hours later. Back at the hotel, Daniel fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the long day. I sat alone at the edge of the bed, the room dim and quiet, except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. That was when a simple fact returned to me, with sudden clarity. I was the one paying for Lily's college tuition. I had started helping her when I was 19, just after I found my first stable job. My mother said families helped each other, and I never questioned it. I opened my laptop and logged into the payment account. The next tuition installment was due in a few days. The numbers sat on the screen while I thought about the afternoon at the vineyard. Then I cancelled the payment. After that, I opened the online lease for Lily's apartment near campus and removed my name from the agreement. It took only 2 clicks. In that quiet hotel room, for the first time in my life, I finally said no. What happens after a quiet decision changes everything? Not the loud moment in public, but the calm action taken afterward, when the world is still and no one is watching. The morning after the wedding, I made one final call that would turn a private boundary into a permanent consequence. When the financial aid office answered, I explained that I was the account holder responsible for supporting a student's tuition and that the funding had been withdrawn. I also informed them that my name had been removed from the lease guaranteeing that student's housing near campus. The woman on the phone paused for a moment, the kind of silence that follows when someone understands the chain reaction before speaking it aloud. Then she confirmed carefully that without financial support or housing, the student would no longer be able to fulfill the early decision agreement she had signed earlier that year. That afternoon, my mother called again. This time, I answered. Her voice arrived quickly, tight with urgency. "You need to fix this, Emily. Your sister is falling apart." I stood by the hotel window looking out across the quiet rows of vineyards stretching into the distance. She should have thought about that before she ruined my wedding, I replied calmly. My mother sighed, repeating the same explanation she had given for years. You know Lily has been struggling. She did not mean it like that. I closed my eyes for a moment before answering. Mum, you are confusing love with enabling. Then, I ended the call. Later that evening, my father called, something he rarely did. He spoke quietly, almost carefully. Your mother is devastated, he said. Then, he paused. But I understand why you made your decision. 3 days later, the university sent an official letter confirming that Lily's admission had been rescinded. The contract she signed was binding. There would be no appeal. For about a week, my mother left voicemails asking me to reconsider. Eventually, the messages stopped. Lily, who had always lived loudly and publicly, said nothing at all. Months later, Daniel asked if I regretted it. I thought about the vineyard, the fallen cake, and the long years before that moment. The truth came easily. I only regret that I waited so long. Thank you for listening to this story. And if you stay with us, the next chapter may reveal even more about what happens when silence finally breaks.